Hey everybody, welcome to Your Unpaid Therapist.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Your Unpaid Therapist.
I'm not getting paid. I didn't even get a donut.
Oh, that's sexy though. I like it. I'm Valerie Milagros Ortiz. I don't know.
I am your host, Ali Kona. She's away. Brad Ford. This is Your Unpaid Therapist. Shoo-wah, cha-cha.
Shoo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba.
Hi everybody, welcome. Hello. Today's guest, I'm so excited because I don't think I've seen anybody rock so many banana hammocks and look so amazing wearing them on national television. He was on 15 seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race. He's anchored in Entertainment Tonight, worked for Young Turks Network, and most recently in Bienvenido a Miami, doing the morning, I call it morning news. That's pretty accurate, right, Jason?
Sure.
Okay, morning news. So many wonderful things. I'm really excited to have him here. He's the king of grit and hustle and all the things. And my former roommate, Mr. Jason J. Carter. Hello.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Hi. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so really quick before we get into our never have I evers, the reason I wanted to have Jason on here is because Jason is so good at seeing the long game and focusing and getting there. But outside of that too, so good at if you're not giving me what I'm worth, then I'm out. Like personal relationships, professional relationships. And I feel like it takes a lot of confidence and strength to be able to do that. So I want to dive into that. But first, Señorita Valerie Ortiz, what do you have for us today?
All right. So I'll choose first, I guess. Then,
Okay.
Whatever. Pick a card. Never have I ever been haunted by a ghost. Ooh.
Of that you know of. Because
True facts.
because-
So I believe in this shit, and
Me too.
whatever, say
I
what
think
you-
that Val, I think vampires are very real. I think
vampires.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
gosh.
Fairies are real. Absolutely. Okay, this stuff, I mean, look, this is a whole other episode of Your Unpaid Therapist that we can talk about, like supernatural, but
Yeah.
it's real. They're out there.
I do. So I do. I don't think. Okay, haunted is. What do we mean by that? I think I've been visited a lot by ghosts. I always think it's my grandma or somebody. But in my old apartment, there's a light that when you go into the bathroom and you walk in, it comes on like a lit. What is it called? Like a sensor. So sorry. And that light would go off all the time. And even after Miley passed, like, and or even before, actually, there'd be nobody in the bathroom. Like, I'd be in my room, like it's nighttime, so all of a sudden the little light goes on and I'm like, and at first it freaked me out, but then it just made me be like, cool.
Yeah.
I think that's something, but I don't know. Have y'all?
Yes, and it was not that friendly.
No?
No, oh my God, not at all. I had somebody come, like, I thought I was dreaming. I used to have really bad dreams. This was actually the apartment, Jason, that you and I had lived in. And I think
The dump in Van Nuys.
Thank you. Yes, that one. And I thought there's something called a pressing ghost that will sit on your chest while you sleep. And I thought it was that. I would see dark figures in my room. I thought I was dreaming. And then I had a friend spend the night and she was like, there's someone in your room. It's a man. And he told me to get out. And I was like, I'm sorry, you said what? So then I went online and I looked and it said you're supposed to salt the room with sea salt. And so I did sea salt. You're supposed to get it blessed by a priest. And I didn't know any priests. And so look, don't ever Google how to bless some shit. Okay, because that's what I did. And then I salted the whole house, went to work, came back, and that ghost was like, sure. All the lines in the house, I did window seals, doorways, were now slashes, like a coupon, little dashes. And at first I thought that was Lonnie Kai, but I was like, she can't reach the window seals. Then I went into my room and it looked like raindrops fell on all the salt. And then I went in the kitchen and the salt was in a zigzag line. And I was like, oh, hell no. So I left. I ended up getting somebody like professional to come cleanse the house, but I was like, no.
Oh, wow.
So you seasoned your house.
Pretty much. She's like, then I had some adobo, a little bit of cayenne
Like the
pepper.
adobo, the Lowry, y todo, all of it por vida. And then she's like, you know what? And then, so the ghost was like, first of all, Salt? No, baby. We need some. Those were tears of the ghost because they wanted you to season with a different salt. That's what.
Right. Give me some hot sauce up in this.
Right, some hot sauce.
So super.
Wow. Have you ever
Yeah.
experienced anything like that ever again?
Yes, I had another roommate come live in the master bedroom, and he said
But
the
that
same
was
thing,
still in the same
same
place?
place. Yeah,
Okay. So it's to the place.
to the place. But then my roommate also saw my dad. We went hiking. He knew what my mom looked like. My mom's Japanese, never seen my dad before, and was like, "Does your dad have like a James Dean kind of vibe?" And I was like, "Yeah, when he was younger, he did the whole gold chain, white tee, pompadour." And I found a picture of my dad when he was in his 20s, gave it to my roommate, and he was like, "That guy was in my room last night." And
That's out.
yeah, and he's like, he didn't say anything to me, but I felt the need to tell him that I had no ill intentions with you. And I was like, that's about right.
Maybe your dad was being protective. See,
Mhm.
he's being protective.
Maybe, I don't know.
I stand to that.
Yeah. Anyways, next question.
Wait, but Jason didn't answer it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I've never been visited. Okay, no, that's a lie. When my uncle passed away from a massive heart attack in 2008, Allie, I told you about that. We were living together still,
Okay.
and I couldn't afford to go to the funeral, so I felt really, really bad. And I had a dream that he came to me and said it was okay. And that dream, yeah, no, I know. And if that dream felt so real because I felt so guilty. And it was at a time I was dating that really douchey boy I was dating. Remember, I was dating a douchey boy. And it was just a really stressful time in my life. And I felt so comforted in that dream. And so I really truly believe we would be remiss if we didn't accept the fact that we are not alone in the universe, that there absolutely is metaphysical and supernatural entities, spirits, energy, all of that. It exists. Why would there be hundreds of years of lore and written documents and stories that, sure, through the game of telephone have been watered down, but where there's smoke, there's fire, and they originated from fact and truth. I believe that. So if someone's visiting you, if you saw your dad was looking out for you, Allie. If your grandma was flickering the light in the bathroom, that's your grandma saying, "Hey Val, hey girl, flush when you're done."
I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, y'all's turn. Who wants to go next?
Jason, you go.
Okay, yellow.
Okay. Never have I ever accidentally lit something on fire and it didn't end well.
No. Everything I lit on fire ended well. I was one of those kids who would fry grasshoppers with magnifying glasses. I was that dude. I would spray bugs with like hairspray and whoosh. Now, as an advocate for animals, never would I ever. But when you're 12 and 11 and 10, you do stuff like that. But as far as like arson, never engaged in arson where things were burnt to the ground.
That is fascinating. I've always thought, like, if my little kid did that, like if you were my son, like I'd be like, oh, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with him? I need a meal. He wants to kill me. You know what I mean? Like I'd be freaking out. But I know it's like boys will be boys, I guess. I don't know. That is really funny.
Yeah.
I was
funny, but funny.
No, it's all sorts of funny. Me, I have a twin brother, and so we were always just doing the most as kids because we were bored. And as 90s kids, we grew up in a time
we were outside.
Right. We were outside. The sun came up, you got your clothes on, out all day. Sometimes you didn't come home until like it was pitch black. But even then, that's where even more magic happened because you were just so at liberty with your imagination. You weren't stuck to a phone. And video games were a thing, of course, but we had to earn the time to play video games. It wasn't like a go-to. Chores had to be done. A litany of things had to be concluded and completed before we could even sit down to think about Super Mario Brothers because we were outside all day. So I'm here for that. These kids missed out on so much. Poor things. The tragedy.
I know it's good. I'm gonna say no for me. I've never turned any or lit something on fire that turned bad. Ali Kono, what happened over there?
Huh?
That's why Daddy came to haunt you. He's like, remember when?
So this one time, I'm a frequent worker, not much a relaxer, and I was like, I'm gonna have this really nice, relaxing bath. And so I had this nice, relaxing bath. I had candles lit. It was great. Laying there, and I rolled over onto like my side, I think to get my shoulder, whatever. So then I was like, that is a weird smell. What is that smell? And I looked and I was like,
Your hair was on fire
Mm-mm.
because of the candle?
yes,
Wow.
That's scary. I was
Yes.
hoping it was like a towel. I mean,
no.
not your hair.
She's like,
Fortunately, I was in the bathtub though, so all I had to do was like, blah, 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 and I was good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but still, your hair on fire. I mean,
Yeah.
like, the only other person I've known to have their hair on fire is Michael Jackson. So
oh,
I know. Too soon?
Okay, Alicona.
okay. Let's do pink. That one.
Oh, this one has nothing.
Oh, I haven't then.
Okay.
Okay.
Never have I ever acted like a badass as a child and got the belt from a parent.
Once in my life, and it never happened again. The end.
What did you do? You can't just say that.
I think I lied. And it was like, I was little. I was like under 5 because it was in California, and I never lied after that. Or did a better job, maybe.
Yeah,
But-
you probably did right because the kids, the ingenuity that kids exemplify is out of this world when it comes to getting what they want and getting out of trouble. I got spanked all the time. I was like forever being paddled.
Paddle.
I ditched school for
Oh.
a week, and my parents never found out until like months later. And when they found out, they're like, "Well, first of all, how'd you pull that off? Why? Because the ingenuity of kids is out of this world." 2, I saw all sorts of belts, which is belts, phone cords, all the things. So I've
Oh
been
my God.
spanked. Yeah, but
So
I'm
it
thinking,
didn't work? Like when
Yeah.
you were disciplined, were you like, fuck? Or were you just like, it was working?
Val, that's a great question because I think as I grew so this was when I was probably like tweens. When I became a teenager, my parents divorced, and so my mom, just a whole dynamic change of me and my brother and my sister's life. So I had exponentially more freedom as a teenager, and when that happened, I didn't have the want to rebel because I could do whatever I wanted, and also I was an ambitious teenager, so I realized, growing up in the '90s, you realize that everything you saw about young Black gay men was like you're gonna have AIDS, you're gonna end up with babies, you're gonna be in jail. And I was gonna be a dancer for Janet Jackson. I was gonna be a star. So in order for me to do that, everything that was negatively thrown at me, I was like, so I walked this really straight and narrow path as a young adult because I realized I wanted success. And in order to do that, I had to be obviously antithetical to what I was seeing. So I think as a kid, sure, but as I grew up, I was like, no, I don't. I disciplined myself. If that makes
Which
sense.
is a great segue into how you are now, because I think that starting at such a young age and finally knowing that want or where you saw yourself and being like, nah, I got this. Like, I'll belt myself. Like, get it together.
Yeah.
I love that. Is that where you were going to go, Alicona?
That's exactly where I was going to go. And I had this memory. So Jason and I mentioned before, we lived together, we danced together. That's how we met. I started hosting after Jason started hosting, but you knew, like, as soon as you were done with dancing and you transitioned to hosting, like, you stayed there and you stayed focused. And I have dabbled in everything because I get impatient. But I remember you working at AT&T for like ever and ever and ever. And that's like part of the thing is people don't realize when you're still trying to rise, you still have to do your hustle. And so it's like you were buying new outfits every week for Young Turks, which if you guys have never heard of that, that's a YouTube channel. It's like one of the #1 news networks.
Yeah, biggest in the world.
And you weren't getting paid.
Nope.
But like, what made you be like, I need to make sure that I look the part, et cetera, and I know for a fact, like, I'm going to get there.
It was because I always heard no. And to me, so the Young Turks came about, I had always been on television since I was 16 years old. I had my first job on air in my hometown for Fox. And that was from 16 through 21. And then at 21, I moved to LA, did the whole dance thing. And then Ali, I met you in the fall of 2006. And then a year later, I moved in September 2007. And then we lived together for almost 10 years.
Wow. Wow, I didn't know it was that long.
Dude, I just want to say, I cannot believe Jason is always like with dates. Janet Jackson Velvet Rope Tour, fall 2000.
I'm a numbers nerd. But to answer your question though, it was I just when I had to dumb down my successes and see the opportunity bigger than what the opportunity was, because the Young Turks came about. We were both in hosting classes, doing all the things, and I was on Twitter one day, and I saw a tweet back when people were using Twitter bigger than, more than other social media platforms than they are now. And the host of the show I had met 2 or 3 years ago. So I tweeted her and said, "Hey, I love your show. Can I come be a guest in the audience?" And she tweeted back and said, "Why don't you come be a guest on the show?" And I thought, what? Okay, so I went in and they liked me. And the show was a pop culture show about politics. So let's say, like, we're talking about Taylor Swift and her taking a stance on politics. We would dissect that and have opinions. It was a panel show like The View. And they just kept inviting me back. Like, "Hey, can you come back next week? Can you come back next week?" And I did that for 2 years before I even saw a dime. And the day rate was like $50 a day when they finally started paying me. But I realized who they were and what the outfit, meaning the outlet was what I needed to set me on a path of where I was trying to go, because the validity of the outlet and what we were talking about and the reach was just as valuable as a day rate. Sure, I had my full-time job at AT&T, which I was calling out sick, using vacation time, doing everything I could to be available for these opportunities when they came, and they were far and few between. And I remember Christmas of 2016, we would shoot on Thursdays. And mind you, this was a highlight of my week. Thursdays was like, I would get up, I would shower, I'd have my outfit, I would go to Starbucks, get my coffee, I would get there early, I would do my notes. I was just so thankful that I could be hosting somewhere that received me, that wanted to work with me, that I wasn't asking for permission to be seen and accepted. They were like, "We see you, we accept you, please come back, please have coffee and tea and all the snacks there. Be you, just do you." And so it was just awesome. And so I did that for 3 years, and it opened so many doors for me. My birthday in 2017, my husband and I went to New York City for an event he had. And so I was in New York for my birthday, and the EP of the main show, which was like the Beyonce of the album. If you got on the main show, that was 5 million views and like 12 million, like just everyone watched this main show. He called me and was like, "Hey, we need someone to fill in on the main show. Where are you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm in New York." He's like, "Oh, okay, no worries." I said, "You know what? I'll get back there." So I took a red eye back.
Wow.
Yeah, to be on the main show for the very first time. And then that opened even more doors there. I think one of the biggest lessons that you have to learn as, I hate to use the word talent, as an artist, is just keep showing up in any way you can. And a lot of these new artists, younger generations, younger Gen Z, younger millennials, Gen Z, through the lens of social media, sees everything as this instantaneous, very quick, very swift success. They don't realize that the overnight success of Victoria Monet, who just got Best New Artist at the Grammys after being a ghostwriter and being behind the scenes for so many successful artists, 15 years of doing what she's been doing to finally, as she said at the Grammys, "I've been this tree whose roots have been spreading underground. Finally, my roots are coming up above ground for people to see," which I thought was so poignant, because that's the truth. An overnight success is 10, maybe 15, maybe sometimes 20 years in the making. I mean, Brendan Fraser winning an Oscar after being written off for decades. So I think that's just one of the things, is that if you really, I like when you always ask me, like, about grit and stick-to-itiveness and why I am in for the long game, because I've realized that the long game is the marathon, not the sprint. And you want to give up. You want to say, "Fuck this, I'm done." You want to be bitter and angry and envious and all the natural, very real emotions that people feel in and out of this business. Feel those things, but keep showing up, because had I not kept showing up at the Young Turks, it wouldn't have led me down the path to so many other things that I kept showing up for, that led me down the path to even bigger things.
Well, that, and because what came next for you was Entertainment Tonight. And I remember asking you, because I was like, well, how did you do that? Like, back in the day, that was the job. Now I think that's probably not as exciting for us as hosts, but you're like, "They called me."
Right,
And I
they
was like,
did.
"Oh."
Okay.
While I was at the Young Turks, I'll never forget too, it was a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday. And they had slid into my spam folder on Instagram. And I don't keep the Instagram app on my phone because I'm a constant scroller. So I realized that, okay, look, in order for me to be productive, I got to get rid of a lot of social media that I was addicted to. That day, I downloaded the app. Let me check my messages. I always go into the spam first because it's a whole treasure trove of fun in the spam folder. And there was a recruiter, this guy named Adam from CBS, and he was like, "Hey, we've been watching you. Do you have time to hop on a call?" Now he sent that message 2 days before I got it.
Wow.
I responded quickly. Look, he had been on, asked me if I could hop on a call with him, and in about an hour, I said, sure. So hopped on the call. My service was so bad where I was at, I DM'd him on Wi-Fi and said, "Hey, I'm going home. Can I give you a call around 2?" Mind you, it was like 12:30 already, but in LA, it takes an hour to get anywhere. I was in Culver City. I live in the Valley. Y'all know the struggle. And so when I called him, it was him and the EP, and she got on the phone and she was like, "Hey, what's your story?" And so we started talking, and we talked for about a good 45 minutes. At the end of the call, she was like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I had to work. "I want to see you tomorrow. Can you come to Burbank? Just come, let's talk, let's chat." I said, "Sure, no problem." So I was there the next day, called in sick to work, got in major trouble because I was on a point system at where I used to work. Because I was always calling out for my job, I was at my final point, right? So I said, "You know what? I'm going. So I went, and I didn't even know it was going to be an audition. I had no idea. So I get there, no makeup. I'm dressed. I'm normally like, I looked good. And we started talking for an hour, and all of a sudden I'm being hustled into this audition. She said, "Okay, we want you to read." So I go into this room with someone who had already been hired for the job, and I'm thrown copy.
Oh.
And so I was going bantering back with this girl, and someone comes over, the voice of God, which is the intercom when they talk to you in the studio, the voice of God.
Mhm.
And he asked me, "What do you think about Jay-Z and Beyonce?" And I said, "They're okay. I mean, I like Beyonce, but whatever. I mean, I think her last album was all right. I mean, Lemonade, she was kind of mad at Jay-Z. I don't know. I'm just not feeling her these days. And Jay-Z, he mattered to me back in the 90s, but now I just think he's like every other rapper. So I could take him or leave him." And they said, "Okay, thank you." So the audition was over. I left. Then on my way out, they're calling me and they're like, "Hey, can you go to Radford, which is the CBS studio in Studio City? There's one in West LA and there's one in Studio City, where they call it CBS City." And they wanted me to meet with the head of Entertainment Tonight. So they sent the car, they had a car come pick me up. I went, and that's where things got
real.
real, because I walked in, sat down, and she's like, "Tell me about yourself." And I'm like, "Well, do you want the LA version or the real version? Like, which one do you want?" And she's like, "Just tell me about yourself." So we started talking. And then she asked me, "What do you think about Wendy Williams?" And I thought, what kind of setup is this? I said, "Well, what do you think about Wendy Williams? You go first." And she was like, "No, you go." And I said, "Wendy's cool. I kind of beef with her because she tried to out LGBTQ plus people in the 90s, but I guess she's cool now. I mean, she's definitely has a successful show. She's an Emmy winner. People love her. But I mean, again, she's Wendy Williams. She's a shock jock. So, I mean, are we surprised by anything she's saying?" And the woman who I was talking to, her name was Sharon Hoffman. She was like, "I love her, but I agree. She's okay." And then I looked over and I saw that her son played basketball for USC. And I said, "Oh, you have an athlete in your home. That's cool. Wow, must be cool going to his games." And that's where she opened up, because we started talking about her life. And at the end of the meeting, like most auditions or whatever, you can't get a read. You don't know, because sometimes you go to really great meetings and hear nothing.
Right.
Or you go to really shitty meetings and then you get the job. So on my way out, I just told her, "If I never speak to you again, ever again, thank you for your time. This was great. Thank you for allowing me to come and just be in this energy. And I guess I'll see you around." I just walked out. The car took me back to my car, and then I didn't hear anything for a month.
Oh.
The culmination of all this is I went to Europe, summer of 2018. Me and my husband are in the Sistine Chapel. You can't have phones in the Sistine Chapel.
Mhm.
So when I walked outside of the Sistine Chapel, I finally got phone service. And it had been CBS calling me repeatedly saying, hey, please give us a call. We know you're abroad. Hey, this is so-and-so from CBS. Give us a call. Jason, I had 5 messages from this one woman named Dara. And the 5th message was, hey, you got the job. Give us a call. So, and that was, I mean, I know we're out of town, long story short, but, you know, it ended up being a very eye-opening experience. And I say all that because just because you think you've landed on the dream island for the dream trip doesn't mean that it can't be a nightmare. And I'll leave you with that.
Oh, yes.
Jeez, now we need a sequel.
I know.
I was just like, well, I guess we're doing a season 2 with Jason here.
Well, it's so funny, and I guess we'll just do this next episode, right? Because initially I went into this and I wanted to talk about, Jason, how you recently recognized at a job that you were doing so much for this particular network and they were not reciprocating that same appreciation for all your hard work. And you're like, deuces. And most of us are like so afraid to do that. But I think we'll save that for next episode just because I want part 2 of whatever is happening. But I also want to ask you, Val, because there's obviously a reason you shared that as far as you were honest with them. I think that's why they liked you. Like, you weren't trying to be anybody else. You weren't trying to be like, oh, okay, Beyonce and Jay-Z are the hype, so I'm going to act like I love them because I think that's what they want to hear. You're like, I'm just going to speak my truth, and this is me and whatever. And that applies to any job, not just the entertainment industry. But I love, Val, I know it's your story, so you tell it, but your audition for Gabby Duran, and they asked you a question, and I thought your response was so cute.
Oh, yeah. I was like, which one? Okay.
Yeah. So please tell.
They asked me it was kind of similar. I was going in for a mom of a almost teen, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be cast as a mom. I'm too young. And at first it was a recurring, and then I go in and I see all these older, beautiful women, but they look like they could have kids. Anyway, I wasn't even memorized because it was like the night before. Go in, good audition. I didn't even get home, and they're like, can you come back that day to read with the lead actress? I was like, oh, okay. Like, just because I was like, shoot, like it's producer meeting now. I wasn't memorized. Like, that's like, I feel horrible if I'm not memorized. Go in there, and then they're doing the little interview, and they were like, so, they're like, what do you like about Canada? Is that what they
No, it's something about the hockey team, right?
Yeah, they were, or what do you think? No, but it was about like, what do you think about like the sports in Canada or something about the hockey team? And I was like, well, I really don't know anything about sports in Canada, but I like maple syrup. And they were like, well, okay. Because I literally knew nothing about hockey or Canada, really. But I was like, I know they're famous for their syrup. And that was that. And they thought that was really funny.
That is funny.
But
I would have said I like the Toronto Maple Leafs are the hockey, right? I would be like, I've always loved the Canadian flag. I think the Maple Leaf is pretty.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have I just didn't know that part. What were you going to say?
No, I remember when you told me that story, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear that you told me that after you answered that question, like later on when they were talking to you, they had said, yeah, like you got the job. Like after you answered that question, they just thought that you were.
They told me once we were in Canada, like that like kind of just made them be like, oh, that was like clever and honest. And they told the lead that, like the girl who played my daughter, Kylie, they're like, whatever. So I was like, that's cool, and it's like, you never know. Cause I was like, oh my God, that's so stupid. Like I should have just, like researched Vancouver or some shit. Cause that's where we filmed.
But don't you think, I think there's something to be said, especially as we get older, about like how when we start out in this business, well, we all come to this business seeking approval because we need approval to get the job, right? We are all prom kings and prom queens from whatever city we came from in our own ways, right? We were all like the stars that we're always told you're going to be something. I mean, if I open my yearbook now from high school, I was seeing what people wrote because I told them I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. So they believed in you, but you have also burdened yourself with that expectation to fulfill all of that for yourself. And that comes with a lot of pressure. So you leave where you're from, you end up in LA or New York or whatever, wherever you go, where the industry finds you. And we have to ask permission to be these things. We have to ask permission to be on tour with Jennifer Lopez. We have to ask permission to be on a hit VH1 show. And we get so good at telling people what they want to hear because we also learn how to try to manipulate the situation because we have to make all this happen. You get really good about trying to one up the system, buck the system, and over time meaning years, no, seriously, right? Because you realize that, I'm done with that shit. Fuck that. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself. Well, today I'm hungry, I'm upset, I'm bothered, I have $20 to my name, I'm unemployed. What else do you want to know? My credit's shit. And this is hypothetical, but people go through
Right.
things. So it's like, what do you want to know? I am here at this audition. I would love the job. I'm sure there's a whole list of other people that are probably better than me, but I'm gonna give it my go. And if it's for me, cool. If not, thank you so much. Let me be on my miserable way. And people, believe it or not, they're not going to tell you that's the secret sauce. They want authenticity. They want you to be like, but we get so wrapped up in trying to be what everybody wants us to be from trauma. Some of us pursue this career because we have something to prove to people who said we couldn't be this. Severe insecurity. Majority of the most ambitious people I have met are the most insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And they're using, and I'm guilty of this, I've been guilty of this for sure. They're using the success to be like, well, look, I am successful. So I matter now. I've achieved. Whereas that's all coming from an external source which is so dangerous. And I say this because I am so bad. I am completely guilty of this, even as an adult, even as of 2 hours ago. So when you finally, I think it says a lot about you, Val, to be like, I don't know shit about sports. Sorry. I mean, the Canada's great. Poutine's awesome. Vancouver had the 2010 Winter Olympics. Awesome. That's all I know.
I just know I like to eat dessert.
Right. And people find that refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything? Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, to piggyback off of what you were saying, yes, not every entertainer, but a lot of entertainers I know have some sort of, like you said, childhood trauma. They're trying to prove something. But something I noticed about me is first of all, I was a very quiet child, like painfully quiet, shy. My parents had the worst time trying to get to know anything, like what's wrong, what's this, what's that, like tell me something, talk. But nobody really listened to me. And then when I became older and I realized as a host, like, first of all, I'm very assertive as a host. Like when I watch myself on camera, I'm like, Jesus. And I talk loud and I realized, oh, it's because when you were little, no one ever listened to you. So now it's like you make it a point to be heard always. And it's not always
Even with your appearance, you don't say anything, but you say a lot. And you've told me, even with like your hair and your makeup and stuff, like it's always been a way for you to just like, this is me. And that's one of my favorite things about you, I feel like, because you are, I've said it in the past, and I think I told this to you, Jason. I was like, you have always been, and you continue to be unapologetically you.
Yeah.
And if that's the one thing that you got from like the things that happened in your youth, like what a fucking gift, because I think that you stand out always.
Yeah.
In a great way.
Valerie, well said. Well said. Ali, I've known you for almost 20 years now. 2026, I've known you for 20 years. And you have always taken the road less traveled confidently, even from your lifestyle, from veganism to animal cruelty, to all the things that you support, that you're an advocate for. You unapologetically stand very staunchly and unwaver. You're like, this is it. This is what we're doing. Either you get on board or I'm out. Figure it out. And I like that. And I mean, I've seen so many different eras of who you are, from doing makeup to dance to hosting to just even becoming like a dog walker. You're not afraid to do what's unconventional. Whereas some people, like you're talking to me about the long haul, about the stick-to-itiveness. I think there's also a strength in being able to try new things and be like, I don't care what people think. I'm just going to do what's right for me and know what's right for you, and be so in tune and so in touch with yourself. People never get there. They never get there, especially in our business.
Yeah.
Because again, we're so wrapped up in what other people think and trying to be what other people want out of fear of not succeeding. That if we venture too far to the left or too far from the right from what we think is the status quo, then we're off the track. Where you're like, I am the track. You know what I mean? Like, y'all need to get on board. And if you can't get on board, it's cool, because the train's leaving regardless. And that's, as Val said, absolutely a gift. that the trauma, and trauma could be a varying level of different degrees and things, gave to you that you now live authentically in your adulthood.
And people have been inspired by, like, we did a live one day, and this woman who Alicona has spoken to and like given like little gems and little advice to, and just little nuggets of like, you got this, to work out and move. Like, she like just poured her heart out to like what Alicona meant to her and what she said. And I'm like that's the why. Like, this is why you're you. Anyway, I love it, which makes so much sense as why you both were roommates for so long, because you are so like-minded. And I feel like those, you keep the people who like get you, who see you. You were saying something that your parents, they didn't listen, they didn't hear you, but they just, I don't think they heard, but they didn't understand. And that's two different things. So being around people who really get you and understand you is rare and beautiful. And it's great to like see both of you and like what you both represent. Thank you, Jay. We have like a minute left.
Yes.
So man, there was so much that we did want to get to.
Part 2.
Yes, but part numero dos is coming up with Jason, y'all. Thank you for your time. Speaking of time, thank you for your time.
Of course, my pleasure.
All right, guys. We'll just sign it off real quick before we get cut off. English, before we get cut off. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Till part 2. Adios.
Adios.